Hello to all, members of staff, members of the board, the public. Today is January 22nd, Friday, and this is a meeting of the Medical Board of California starting at approximately 8:32 a.m. You may notice board members accessing their laptops during the meeting. They're using the laptop solely to access board meeting materials that are in electronic format. This is an official business meeting of the Medical Board of California. As such, disruptions of the board's business will not be tolerated. We have a designated time on the agenda for public comment and we ask for public comment on each agenda item. I ask that you be respectful of the need for the board to conduct its business. Should anyone disrupt the meeting, I will kindly ask that they conduct themselves in a manner that allows the board to complete its business. This meeting will be available via teleconference. Individuals listening to the meeting will have an opportunity to provide public comment and will be assisted by a moderator who will be facilitating the teleconferencing process. For those members of the public participating via teleconference, please wait until the moderator has introduced you before you make your comments. To request to make a comment during the public comment period, press *1. You will hear a tone indicating you are in the queue for comment. If you change your mind and do not wish to make a comment, simply press the pound sign. Assistance is available throughout the teleconferencing meeting. To request a specialist, press *0. Each person will be limited to 3 minutes per agenda item. During agenda item 3, public comments on items not on the agenda, the board has limited the public comment period for individuals on the teleconference to 20 minutes. In addition, public comments from individuals here at the meeting will also be limited to 20 minutes. Therefore, after 20 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. During public comment on any other agenda item, we seek 10 minutes will be allowed for comments from individuals on the teleconference line and those in the audience. After 10 minutes, no further comments will be accepted. Business services staff will be assisting me with receiving the public comments via teleconference during this meeting. The board welcomes public comment on any item on the agenda, and it is the board's intent to ask for public comment prior to the board taking action on any agenda item. If for some reason I forget to ask for public comment on an agenda item and you wish to speak, please simply raise your hand and you will be recognized. I would like to request all speakers to complete a speaker's presenter slip so I can call you by name at the appropriate time, and that there is a record for this meeting can be both full and complete. The request to fill out the speaker slip form is voluntary. Please give the slips to Ms. Toof. Ms. Toof is to my right. Can you raise your hand? Thank you very much. I will do my best to call upon everyone who has supplied a slip for an agenda item and recognize those who wish to make any last-minute comments. I want to remind all speakers to please stay on topic and keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. We plan to end today at our designated closing time. I would also like to introduce the members of our any special guests that we have here. Karen Fisher, the Executive Officer of the Dental Board. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. Jonathan Burke, the Department of Consumer Affairs. Good morning. Thank you for being with us. And Sarah Hutchell, consultant for the Senate Business and Professions Committee. Good morning. Good to see you. Thank you for joining us, and Ms. Kirkmeyer and your staff. I'm joined by our legal counsel, Diane Dobbs and Carrie Webb. Good morning. I would like to call the meeting to order and ask Ms. Toof to please call the roll.
Dr. Bolot? Here. Dr. Bishop?
Here.
Judge Feinstein?
Here.
Dr. Gonadev? Dr. Hawkins?
Here.
Dr. Kraus?
Present.
Ms. Lawson?
Here.
Dr. Levine?
Here.
Dr. Lewis?
Present.
Ms. Pines?
Here.
Ms. Shipsky? Ms. Wright?
Here.
Ms. Yaroslavsky.
Present.
Dr. Yip. Mr. Serrano Sewell.
Present.
Thank you.
We have a quorum. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2, public comments on items not on the agenda. I have no speaker slips. Are there any members of the public that are present that wish to comment on agenda item 2? Seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line? Brandy?
No comments at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Seeing no comments, let's move to item agenda 3, approval of the minutes from the October 29th, 30th, 2015 board meeting.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second.
There's been a motion by Dr. Lewis and a second by Dr. Bolat. Oh, Ms. Pines, I'm sorry. Ms. Wright? Thank you. Second by Ms. Wright. Do we call the roll?
Dr. Bolat. Dr. Bishop.
Aye.
Judge Feinstein. Never mind.
I
Sorry.
abstain.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Dr. Hawkins.
Yes.
Dr. Kraus.
Yes.
Ms. Lawson.
I'll abstain also.
Thank you. Dr. Levine.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Ms. Pines.
Aye.
Ms. Wright.
Aye.
Ms. Yaroslavsky.
Approved.
Dr. Yip.
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell.
Aye.
Thank you.
I've read the minutes. Moving on to agenda item 4, the President's Report. It is my distinct honor as the board president to carry on a tradition that we do here at the Medical Board, and that is administer a ceremonial oath of office to our newest members. And we are blessed to have 2 distinguished Bay Area citizens joining this board. I think the governor keeps elevating this board with his appointments, not only these 2, but the previous as well. And we're truly blessed. So if it is okay with Ms. Lawson and Judge Feinstein, we'll do the oath here in front so we can get pictures for our newsletter. And then when I'm done with that, if you'd just like to say a few words back at the seat, you may do so. So we'll just do it one at a time. Is that all right? Yeah, sure. We'll start with Ms. Lawson, and then we'll do Judge Feinstein.
You're first.
You're first.
All right.
Right up there in the front. And have this if you want to follow as well.
Excellent.
Thank you. And for those of you that don't know and didn't have an opportunity to read the governor's message announcing his appointment of Ms. Lawson, she comes to this board having served as an elected member of the Walnut Creek City Council, serving 1 term as mayor. She is a partner at a distinguished state law firm and a mother of 3, among many other accomplishments. So thank you so much for joining us, and so we'll proceed with this. I sort of broke it down line by line, so we'll just take it one line at a time. I'll say I and say your name.
I, Christina Lawson,
Do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
do solemnly swear that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You want to say something?
It's a tremendous opportunity, and honor to serve on the medical board, and I'm just very much looking forward to getting to know all of my colleagues on the board better. I was pleased to have the opportunity to meet many of you yesterday during our panel and task force work and our dinner as well. And I'm just very much looking forward to getting to work with all of you on the many incredible and significant issues that come before the medical board. Thank you. Thank you.
How are you? Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
This is for having the chance to administer the oath to two honorables is a little intimidating, but
We've done it before.
I know, you've done it before, but here we are. So,
I, Catherine Feinstein,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I'm about to enter.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you for
much.
having me.
Appreciate it. And I just want to say thank you to the governor for appointing me. I look forward to not only working with all my colleagues, but those members of the public who are just generally interested in issues that come before the medical board, as well as specific issues. When I reviewed the materials for today's meeting, although I was just appointed last week, I found so many fascinating overlaps between the law and the administration of law and the issues that this board deals with that I'm quite excited to take the skills that I bring and develop new ones and work with all of you toward greater consumer protection and also on behalf of the physicians and other medical practitioners that the board oversees. So thank you for having me.
Well, you're a modest person. You have that reputation. But you come from us having served on the San Francisco County Superior Court, selected by our college as a presiding judge and a former assistant district attorney and deputy.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Wonderful. As to my report, very excited about the calendar year 2016. We have an opportunity to look at the issues that are of priority to the board. As we go about our business today, I think you'll see those priorities exemplified in the committee reports, all of which are important, both the Enforcement Committee, Dr. Lewis's committee. We'll see how we're sort of moving our consumer protection agendas one piece at a time. I think today will be a very informative meeting. I was on the phone today with our colleague, Dr. Gadanadev. He sends his regrets and is unable to attend today's meeting. In his absence, should it be needed, I've asked our secretary, Ms. Pines, to take on that role. Thank you. Both Dr. Gadanadev and I continue to meet with Kimberly Kirkmeyer and her staff on agenda items. We talk about, I'd say once every other week, twice a month or so, on the board's business and agendas. I'd like to draw your attention to BRD, page BRD 4B-1 and 4B-2. That is the current version of the board's committee roster. So please take a look at that. If there's any suggestions or changes, please contact Kimberly or myself, and we can talk about it. And to the 2 new board members, if you just take a look at those committees and express any interest in wanting to serve on them, just let us know, and we'll make that accommodation. Judge Feinstein will be joining Panel A. And now that we have a full complement of board members, which is very exciting, the president of the board does not serve on the panel, so now that we have a full complement, I won't be serving on the panel, but could spend my energies elsewhere on board-related matters. Are there any questions about my report? Any additions? Okay, great. Thank you. We'll now move to agenda item 5, board member communications with interested parties. Oh, I'm sorry, public comment on my report. Seeing no public comment, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
No comments at this time.
All right, great. We'll now move to agenda item 5, board member communications with interested parties. Are there any members that wish to report any communications that are pertinent to what we asked be reported? I'm looking to my right. I see none. I'm looking to my left. I see none. Okay. I'll take public comment as well, as is our practice on agenda item 5. Seeing no public comment from those present, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
Do you want to go to 14? Okay. No public comments? All right, great. Thank you very much. Before we get to the executive management report, there was a request that we take an item out of order. So we'll now be going to agenda item 14. Dr. Nuovo and Mr. Warden, can you please?
And I would like to point out that there is a handout on everybody's station with an additional information regarding the school that we're about to review.
Mr. Warden and Dr. Nuovo, for the benefit of our new colleagues, can you just state your name and your job title and what you do before you start your report? Give it some context.
Okay, I'm Curtis Warden. I'm the Chief of Licensing for the Medical Board.
Jim Nuovo, Associate Dean of Graduate Medical Education at UC Davis.
Thank you.
Today, we're on agenda item number 14, which is the review for the recognition of Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara School of Medicine's international program. And I want to give a little bit of background on that. After the review and discussion of the initial evaluation of the UAG, staff is requesting the board members to make a determination regarding UAG's proposed four-year curriculum for recognition by the board. Staff is requesting the board members to consider the following. One is to determine if the third and fourth year clinical rotations meet the minimum requirements pursuant to Business and Professional Code section 2089.5. And based on the current information we have received, and also we'll have representatives from UAG today to present and ask questions, because there is one area that we are not quite we have questions about. If the board determines it is meets the requirements, then it would be we would request the board to approve the four-year curriculum for UAG. If the board determines that we need additional information, then we would request additional information and or authorize the staff to perform a site visit to UAG. Please turn to pages BRD 14-1 through 14-18. And this is where the report is that I submitted, and Dr. Nuevo's report, and some of the information from the University of Guadalajara. In addition to today, I provided the members the addendum that UAG provided to me on Wednesday, and that was and that addressed many of the areas of concern listed in my and Dr. Nuevo's reports. Therefore, I will focus my presentation today with a short summary of UAG's background and the one area board staff needs further clarification. UAG is a private nonprofit medical school founded in 1935, located in Guadalajara, Mexico. UAG's medical school consists of the medical school program that primarily educates the citizens of Mexico to practice medicine in Mexico, and then the international program that primarily educates citizens from other countries to practice medicine in other countries, including the United States. The board currently recognizes UAG's medical school education that primarily educates the citizens of Mexico pursuant to California Code of Regulation Section 1314.1A1. And the board also currently recognizes UAG's international program's 5-year curriculum pursuant to California Code of Regulation 1314.1A2. UAG is requesting the board to recognize a 4-year curriculum for the international program. So, board staff and Dr. Nuevo have completed the initial review and including all the additional information and clarification staff has requested from UAG. Dr. Nuevo's report was included in your review on pages 14-4 through 5. Dr. Nuevo and I have reviewed the latest information provided UAG, and the one area of the 4-year curriculum that needs further clarification is in the 3rd and 4th year of clinical rotations that are completed in a UAG affiliated hospital in Mexico. The percentage of time spent in ambulatory care versus inpatient care for each of the clinical rotations, especially the core rotations of the 54 weeks, and then the remaining 18 weeks. I'm going to ask Dr. Nuevo to give you a little bit of his insight on that.
Thank you, Kurt. This represents, I think, the 6th program that I've reviewed for the medical board, just in terms of context, and I'll focus my comments just on this area of concern. In reviewing the information, we did request from the school additional information and received tables that suggested that the majority of the experience during the 3rd year clerkship was ambulatory. This is very important because the preparation for a medical student to be competent and capable of moving to the next step of their career, a graduate medical education position, an internship, if you will, is heavily based on the ability to be competent and to have adequate experience in the inpatient care of patients in surgery, medicine, OBGYN, psychiatry, and so forth. And in reviewing that, I felt that the information provided was inadequate to ensure the board that the training of these students in the 4-year curriculum met the elements of 2089.5. The additional information provided the other day lacks narrative to describe what is the nature of the experience. Is this indeed inpatient care, and is it of sufficient quality to ensure that these students meet the requirements of 2089.5? So that is really the key issue, is that I don't feel that the information provided to date ensures that these core clerkships meet the requirements of 2089.5. And that is really the issue that requires further clarification from the school. And again, the rationale from my point of view is that this inpatient experience is critical to the future development of students and their capacity to be successful and to practice safely as they move to their internship and residency training.
Okay. And now I'd like to ask Mr. Borman to introduce the UAG representatives. And it's my understanding the UAG representatives are here to and prepared to provide a further explanation of the 3rd and 4th year clinical rotations and Mexico.
Well, thank you, Kurt. I am Stephen Borman with the firm of Sloat Links and Borman, and coming into the room right now, I'm very pleased to introduce representatives from the Universidad Autónoma de Guadalajara, Escuela de Medicina, easier to say UAG. The university has sent us the Vice President of International Programs, Susana Leaño. We have the Director General and CEO, Juan Carlos Leaño. And in the middle, we have the Dean of the International Affairs and International Student Programs, Ricardo del Castillo. And then finally, and perhaps most importantly today, we have the Dean, Associate Dean for Clinical Programs, that is Dr. Juan Pablo Cuellar. And I'm a little bit out of breath because I ran down the hall to make sure that they were coming this way. I will ask Dr. Cuellar to come up and sit here and answer your questions and respond to Dr. Nuovo's report. I'm pleased to see Dr. Nuovo. I worked with him before when I was the Attorney General's liaison to this board several years ago before I retired. And I'm also pleased to say that this process, which is the culmination of 18 months, has been a helpful process, I think, for UAG. It started off in an unusual way, and I think I'll just give you a little short kernel of background so you know why UAG is here and kind of where we are, because a tremendous amount of work has been done to bring us to this point. In August of 2014, I got an unusual phone call. A man told me he was Dr. Bill de la Peña. He was a University of California regent. And I have a couple of UC degrees. I've never met a regent, so I was surprised. I wanted to know what this was about. And he is a proud graduate of UAG. He's an internationally renowned eye surgeon. He has served the community of Southern California, largely the Hispanic community, with multiple clinics, and then teaches modern eye surgery throughout Latin America. He was concerned because UAG, for 40 years, they had been recognized in California. The school is, I think, either the largest or second largest private university in Mexico, and also one of the oldest. And what had happened was a couple of things. UAG wanted to update. They wanted to go to a 4-year U.S. or Canadian-style program. And in Mexico, they had traditionally been a 5-year program. And they thought that by notifying the ECFMG, that took care of notifying California. It did not. And that was one problem because they had not worked in advance with the board here, with the board staff. And then there were other issues that we've managed to resolve, and I just want to congratulate everyone for doing that. One of the issues was a almost amusing one. It was a alleged or rumored change of ownership or structure at UAG. Where that came from was that the UAG had a soccer team that over the years had gone from being a university team to being a professional team, no longer attached to the university, but with the same Tecolote or Tecos name, and it was sold, and it was highly publicized. So one of the questions brought to me was, has the university changed ownership? The answer, of course, was no. And interestingly, Juan Carlos Leaño was a professional soccer star, and he happened to be captain years ago of that team. You can see he's still in pretty good shape. But he could tell you, no, selling the professional soccer team had nothing to do with the university. But it was a concern. There were other more serious concerns. One was that some of the clinical rotations were in question. One in particular was a program in New York. And UAG, as it turns out, had concerns about that particular facility in New York. So that was an issue, and some of the other rotations were questioned. And then finally, the big thing was the 4-year program and whether or not what they had decided to do was going to fit under Business and Professions Code 2089, 2089.5. We had an initial meeting after UAG had sort of abruptly been told, you're no longer recognized. This was kind of shocking to them, and students were very concerned. I was even getting calls from physician parents of students saying, what's the story? We had a very rapid meeting with the director, with the licensing staff. UAG immediately decided to go back to the 5-year program because they were only a few months into starting this 4-year ambitious program. And then we started the SAR process, which brings us today to you, the self-assessment review. And it takes, as you know, a year or longer than a year. It's a very detailed review. It's like a complete audit. And we've been working closely with the staff, and they've been very available to us throughout this process. So that's why I can report 2 really positive things. The clinical rotations in the United States, where most of the UAG international students will probably train, have been expanded. They're all recognized. They're all either fully recognized directly or through ACGME. They have new clinical rotation sites in the United States, and from looking at them, they're all really first-rate training facilities, first-rate hospitals. So this will be a great benefit to the students in the various rotations, because now they'll have more choices and there will be no recognition problems. So that was a very positive development. The New York issue was resolved. What I understand today is that the 5-year program, were it to remain in place, is just fine. So we're no longer in a recognition question about UAG as an institution. The issue is the 4-year proposed program. And Dr. Nuovo, in looking at it, I now understand, was concerned about the Mexican hospital training, the clinical rotations in Mexico. He was also concerned that there did not appear to be a requirement for 4 weeks of family practice. I hope and think we've resolved the family practice issue, because that is required, and we have submitted some documentation on that. But if you have questions, I'm sure that Dr. Cuellar can answer that, because it is a requirement. UAG also does 80 hours, whether it's in Mexico or in the United States, of clinical training. Overall, what's required is 72. The focus is on the 54 hours of weeks. I'm sorry, I keep saying hours, and my colleagues are correcting me. I've been doing this all week, so I apologize. Weeks. 54 weeks in hospital training. There's some concern or confusion over how much of that is inpatient, how much of that is ambulatory in the hospital, in the surgical rotations in the hospital, same thing. What's the percentages? What are the students really doing? And that's why we have Dr. Cuellar here to answer your questions. So, by the way, Dr. De La Pena would have been here. He had a conflict. He offered to phone in, but I said, I think we have enough people to help us out today, but I appreciate his offer. But Dr. Cuellar, could you please come up, and I'll let you answer whatever questions the board may have.
Thank you. Dr. Cuellar, thank you for joining us this morning, and your colleagues from UAG. Thank you, sir, for those introductory comments and sort of beginning to maybe answer some of the board members' questions. Is the report complete?
The report's complete, and you have the latest information. The family medicine is not an issue right now. It's just the definition that we need further explanation regarding the inpatient versus ambulatory and the 54 core weeks of training.
So members, what we're actually going to ask Dr. Cuellar to address are the concerns that Dr. Nuovo has brought forward. And then what I'd like to do is ask Dr. Nuovo, after he hears the explanation from UAG, that then you can kind of comment on those and see if that kind of resolves the concerns. Just so the members are aware, what happens in this process is when the document that Mr. Borman related to us, that self-assessment report, comes to the board, we send it out to Dr. Nuovo to review that. So he's done all the review, he's looked at all the documentation, And then the report that you have in your handouts, that's the report from him. And as he did point out, he does have one concern in one area, and that's what we're asking the school to address today. So then the hospital rotation. So Dr. Nuovo, if you could make a comment after we hear from UAG, and then the members could then ask questions to see if their concerns are allayed due to that as well.
Dr. Quare, if you can, as Ms. Kirkmeyer said, speak to the hospital rotation question.
Excuse me, before you start, in all due fairness, they were not in the room when Dr. Nuovo made his comments. I think it would be maybe fair and understandable, so that we hear directly to the issue what Dr. Nuovo spoke about, if Dr. Nuovo would maybe repeat part of his conversation to the benefit of the guests.
Are you unaware of his concerns around the hospital rotation?
No, we're actually aware.
Okay, I think you can. They've been communicating, Ms. Yaroslavsky.
Yeah, I can go ahead and explain.
Thank you.
Good morning, good rainy morning. About the clinical rotations in hospital, the inpatient and the ambulatory hours, as Steve already said, it's 80 weeks, not hours. On the third year, we have, this could vary a lot. We're talking about students who go to the hospitals and have an inpatient experience that may be sometimes more than 50% of the time. It could also be more than 50% ambulatory, but it's always around 50-60%. What does this mean? When a student is in the hospital, he's always taken care of with a teacher or a professor, which is a specialist in that area. If we're talking about pediatrics, it's a pediatrician. If we're talking about internal medicine, it could be a cardiologist, neurologist, and so on. So the students are receiving training with inpatient interaction. I'm talking about patients that are under treatment by myocardial infarction, after a myocardial infarction, and they are being taken care of by the doctor, by the MD. They receive that experience at the moment, at that time, and the professor is in charge, like us, to ask those students to evaluate those students under our supervision and also study the topic at the site. I understand that the ambulatory is another issue. The ambulatory is also inside the hospital. It's always inside the hospital. But they're also practicing their knowledge that was transferred in first and second semester. So in a normal day, we're talking about 60% of the time ambulatory and 40% inpatient experience. And I can assure you that this inpatient experience is really, really wide, because hospitals in Mexico are not just second, but also third level. So you could see any rare case of wide myocardial infarction or a cardiomyopathy. We've had patients with Marfan syndrome, and all of that knowledge is both ambulatory and inpatient.
All right, thank you. Dr. Nuovo, did you?
Well, the real question is, there may be a blend of ambulatory and inpatient training, but the real question is whether the students receive adequate inpatient experience on each of these core clerkships, be it internal medicine or OBGYN or pediatrics or psychiatry or surgery. For any of the core clerkships, are they seeing an adequate number of patients in which they do what would be expected? For those of you who may not be aware of what would be expected of a student for the inpatient experience, is that it would be expected that they would have the opportunity to take a history from a patient, to perform a physical examination on a patient, under the guidance, of course, of their supervising attending, to formulate an assessment of that patient and a plan, and to write a note that is reviewed by the attending to determine if they're developing their knowledge and skills about the assessment of patients on all those different areas of medicine. and that there is a methodology to assess the competence of the student and the opportunity for the students to have adequate experience with the breadth of patients who present in each of these areas. The explanation even now does not provide sufficient detail on the requirements of the students. Yes, that the opportunity to have ambulatory experience during inpatient training is not unusual, but this seems to be heavily skewed towards ambulatory training, and that, again, my key point is that the professional development of students does require intense inpatient training in which they have the opportunities to do exactly what I was saying: history, exam, meeting patients. I'm still not sure. Some concern comes up as to whether this is observational. Are they walking around with an attending, acting as an observer? That would not be sufficient. Now, that's just my conjecture. That wasn't described here. But you have to see that the students have the opportunity to perform these specific developmental tasks on inpatient medicine at a sufficient number so that they have enough experience.
Thank you, Doctor.
I'm sorry.
I think we got the gist
Okay.
of that statement. No, I appreciate that. It was very helpful.
Okay.
I'm going to go to our colleagues now if there's any questions or comments based on the presentations that we've heard today. I'll go to my left, Dr. Lewis.
Hey, thank you. We've been licensing students from UAG for many, many years, right?
Correct.
And I've worked with many fine physicians from UAG, and then I see this report, which is alarming to me as I see it, because I'm thinking, well, what's happened? What's happened over the previous years? Is this an anomaly, or has the focus of medical training changed from inpatient to ambulatory? When I hear the explanation here, I say there's a blend, and the traditional inpatient seems to be less in medical education than a blend of both of them. So am I seeing some anomaly over the years that we've been licensing these students? The report doesn't seem right from previous
Many
years.
schools have restructured their curriculum to emphasize ambulatory from even the first day that students show up, in which they're paired with a longitudinal preceptor over the 4 years of time that they're in training to get a better understanding of ambulatory medicine. But again, I'll go back to what is to the specifics of exactly what the inpatient training is. So I think the ambulatory component is one in which, yes, you do see schools trying to emphasize more of that, but I don't believe there's sufficient description of the inpatient experience to ensure that this 4-year program meets the requirements that I've discussed.
And I just want to add to Dr. Lewis's question, the UAG school itself continues to remain recognized by the medical board. As well, that's their 5-year program. So that there's nothing that we're changing with that. This is actually a program that they kind of branched off into, changed it from a 5-year program to a 4-year program. And the difference is they're now training individuals that are not their citizens. This is like one of our other schools that we've seen in the past where it's not built for their citizens of their country. It's for other citizens to come in, attend this 4-year program. And that's why now this is being brought before us. I'm correct in that, Mr. Warden, right? So we're looking at not their 5-year program, the one that we've always had, that remains. This is now their branch off 4-year program.
Mr. Chairman, perhaps Dr. Cuellar could clarify. He and I have had some extensive discussions, at least last evening, and he could talk a little more detail about what the minimums are that he knows as the dean of the clinical programs, what the minimums are in these required areas, whether it's pediatrics, whether it's surgical, in terms of. Again, we're talking about the in-hospital training in Mexico, even though I'm sure probably most of the students are going to do their training up here, but this is the concern.
I would like to refer to one of the documents we asked for the students to fill and then send over to the UAG program. We asked them to fill how many clinical history taking hours they've received, how many practice they've received, how many hours they've spent examining patients, and that's all in evidence. Just want to clarify that. In internal medicine, which is 12 weeks, we have students doing 60%. Again, this could vary depending on the amount of patients that comes to the hospital. We don't always receive accidents. We don't always receive myocardial infarctions. This could be 70 patients, 100 patients. This is all an approximate, okay? I just want to give the most or the minimum numbers. 60% of ambulatory includes history taking, physical examination in groups of 5 with their teacher and their professor. In that ambulatory experience, they're also receiving questions. They're also filling in questions that they have to send to the platform, the one we use as an educational tool. And after that, the inpatient experience is when they see that same patient in the hospital. If he returns, if he's hospitalized, or if he gets complicated by another disease.
How are they evaluated?
They're evaluated by the teacher always. He's always looking at the students and their experience with the patients, and they're evaluating their ability to examine a patient, to ask a patient, do their clinical history in a right sense, in a right order. And not only that, but also the clinical thinking, which is also evaluated in the platform, the internet platform. And we've seen students receiving more information and improving that knowledge across the 12 weeks. I hope that clarifies more.
It does. Thank you. Are there any additional comments, Dr. Levine?
Just an informational question. How many beds in the hospital, and how
beds?
Yeah.
Most hospitals in Mexico, according to the Mexican laws, second level and third level, they have to be more than 40 beds per level. I'm talking about more than sometimes 180, 160 in total, plus the surgical areas. So each floor could have, as you might already know, each room contains from 4 to 6 beds per room with a separation. So when they do their rotation in the morning, they're looking at 1, 2, 3, 4 patients at that same time. So it could be 1 or 2 patients per student. So they do have a chance to do their clinical history, their physical examination, and they also have help from the professors who bring them to the rooms and do that physical examination all over again if something was missing for their clinical history.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I was clear. Is this a single hospital we're talking about?
Yeah. Oh, well, I thought you were asking about the number of beds in each hospital.
No, I'm asking about the total number of beds that the 3rd and 4th year students in the institution or institutions in which these students do their training. It's more than one hospital at UAG for the 4-year program?
Each subject has more than one site they can practice in. Internal medicine could be 4. Gyn and obstetrics, more than 3. Each one has more than one site.
And the total beds, I'm just trying to get a sense, to Dr. Nuovo's question about the amount of time spent, what the potential volume, occupancy, capacity of the hospital, occupancy rate in terms of the quality and quantity of the potential caseload the students are exposed to. Is that not clear?
I think you're asking about the opportunity of the students at looking at patients.
The patient load that a third-year student on an internal medicine rotation in a hospital, how many patients would they be seeing, and what is the bed capacity of the institutions given the number of students?
It's pretty high. I mean, I've seen students with more than 10 clinical histories per day. 10 clinical histories with their physical examination and their bibliographical references they're asked to review after doing all that work. So I would say that more than 10 patients per day, per student.
Okay.
Dr. Hopkins?
I don't know if that...
Why don't we take some other questions, if that's all right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could respond quickly, my colleague was telling me, there's apparently 300 to 500 beds. They have 100 contracts, but it's running between 300 and 500 beds.
Okay, thank you.
Does the inpatient curriculum cover a minimum range of diagnostics? For example, the student is guaranteed to see disorders related to the heart, the lung, kidney. They're guaranteed to have that exposure on the inpatient. Does their curriculum with goals they have to reach?
Yes, of course. They, as I said, third-level hospitals, they have each area covered with cardiologists, nephrologists, neurologists, and they get to see all of those. They get to rotate inside the medical internal medicine program, or 12 weeks. They get to see all of those patients.
And a minimum goal has to be achieved? Exposure?
Yes, of course. Every student has to take at least 5 clinical histories for each clinical case per week. So that means they're going to get experience from cardiology, nephrology, and in that experience they're also interacting between them. So I'm talking about neurology, nephrology, cardiology, dermatology sometimes. But yeah, they get a lot of experience from all of the specialties included in internal medicine.
Thank you. Dr. Yip?
Hi. Are you allowed to enroll non-citizen in the 5-year program?
A citizen in the 5-year program, you mean Mexican national or U.S. citizen?
U.S. citizen in the 5-year program.
Yes.
What is the need for the 4-year program?
What is the what?
What is the need for your 4? You know, you're coming to get approval for a 4-year program, right?
Mm-hmm.
What is the purpose of having a 4-year program? You have a good 5-year program running.
This allows the student to practice since the 3rd year, and they get inpatient and ambulatory experience since the 3rd year. So a 4-year program gives the student more tools to work with patients and develop this clinical thinking that they've been missing. I mean, not in a large scale, but they've been missing for a while. This allows them to learn in a ascending way. So a 4-year program would approach the students to the clinical thinking and development of those clinical skills.
Are you changing a 5-year program altogether in the 4-year, or are you going to 2-track?
The Mexican nationals have a choice to do teaching inside the school in the 5-year program and teaching in the hospital. This all depends on what they want for the future. Do they want to become hematologists? And this is for the Mexican nationals. But the U.S. citizens, or the ones that are planning on coming back to the U.S., they have to do right now the 5-year program with the internship. They have that only choice. The Mexican nationals are allowed to because they have a choice because of the number of hours and the ability to take the Mexican exam, which is the ENARM, which would be the equivalent to USMLE, and prepare themselves towards their specific specialty.
Another benefit, Doctor, to the potential U.S. and Canadian students is that going to school costs money, And if they can get their education in 4 years instead of 5, they're going to save on school expenses, living expenses, things of that nature. And it makes their experience a little more in line with what's going on in North America, so it's a little more consistent, or it's a easier transition for them. And then when they come up here, for example, to do their residencies, they've had a more similar experience to their colleagues that they're going to be running into and working with up here.
All right.
But it could be also, like I said, a huge economic benefit to the students.
Thank you. Dr. Yip?
So if your 4-year program, you expect to have an increased enrollment into the 4-year program, how many faculty you have now, full-time, academic, and community physician? How many faculty you have in teaching faculty?
Inside the hospitals?
In the whole program. I'm just wondering, do you have enough faculty to handle increased student load?
And we're talking about the 4-year program, right? Since first semester, we have more than 3 teachers or 4 teachers per subject. So in the 3rd year, when they go to the hospital, they have more than, each group has to be 5 students per professor, so that means they all get that experience. We have enough academic staff to cover that need.
All right, thank you for that. Is there, didn't mean to cut you off, Dr. Yip, did you have any other comments, questions?
No, I think probably in our application we have a roster of the faculty so we can see the mix of the faculty and the number of faculty. Just I'm concerned if they have enough faculty, if they increase enrollment. So.
I see. Thank you. Dr. Hawkins?
Oh, yeah, we can have
Dr. Nueva, does UAG understand what you need or what you feel the deficiencies are?
Well, there were opportunities to address our questions about the curriculum. You know, in reflecting back on the comments here, what would resolve this, at least from my point of view, is if there was a document, a log, a demonstration from the school that each student was required to keep a log during their 3rd year clerkships and 4th year of their ambulatory and inpatient experience, and that the curriculum review committee, whatever name it's given, has a process in which they review the logs of students on an annual basis to determine are the students meeting the requirements that would be expected. That's the kind of document, and hearing the comments here and the information we received, that's what would resolve the question, is this adequate? Does this meet 2089.5 elements that I described in my report? That is the answer.
Okay. So you hold on. No, I don't know if we need any more comment from the UAG representatives, but thank you for being here. With respect to Dr. Nuevo's suggestion of the log, if this board were to approve and incorporate in its motion this log requirement that Dr. Nuevo speaks to, is that going to create any issues? We may require it anyways, but oh, well, it would need to meet the satisfaction of
Let me
the medical
clarify,
board
a
and our
log
staff.
that's reviewed, all students' logs are reviewed on an annual basis by the program to determine if the educational component of the 4-year program is adequate and meets the requirements.
Okay, tell them. Go ahead.
I'll take comments from my colleagues. I'll look to my right. Dr. Kraus?
Thank you. Dr. Nuovo, in your report to us dated January 12th, you've recommended a site visit. Do you still believe that that's a necessary component prior to approval?
I'd like to see, I think it would be helpful to see this log. I would expect the school has a curriculum committee of some sort that reviews logs from students. If they do, then I believe that could be presented without the need of a site visit, within a demonstration that the committee reviews the adequacy of that training. If there is no such log, then I believe a site visit would be necessary.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Susana de Año can confirm that they already have that in place, but I'd like her to just say what they're doing so you can be assured
I
if
think,
that's necessary.
Sure, but please keep your comments concise.
Yeah, we actually do have a log for the students that do clinical rotations in Mexico, and they are reviewed weekly.
Okay. Well, it would need to meet our. Okay. Thank you for that.
Hi. Thank you for your presentations, and I'm very familiar with many of your students from UAG over the years. I want to just clarify something because what I heard some exchange was a little confusing to me. Dr. Yip asked about the need for the four-year school. You gave the explanation, and I want to understand who's attending the four-year school. Is that the U.S. school?
Now, all our students are the American citizens are attending the 5-year program. So this 4-year program would be eliminating the internship, which is not necessary for the U.S. students to practice in the U.S. So it will be the same kind of students attending the 4-year program.
So they're the U.S. students attending the 4-year program without the internship. Okay. And will they be taking the Mexican medical examination?
No. If they're going to practice here in the U.S., they come back and they take the USMLE and they practice here in the U.S.
May I clarify, is that required, the Mexican medical exam, or no? It is not required for the U.S. students. So they will come here and take the USMLE, and you're not incorporating those kind of competency assessments in the middle of their school. So at the end of when they take their basic sciences, if you will, you're not having them take USMLE Step 1. There's no need for that. Is that what you think?
They do have to take USMLE Step 1 and Step 2 CK and CS.
Prior to, or when do they take that?
They can take it after the 2nd year or when they graduate.
I see. And the other piece I wanted to finally add is I think that getting back to our colleague, Dr. Nuevo, he mentioned that I think that if you have those logs, we would really like to see that. And also, how do you assess competency? I think that's very important. I think it's crucial. And as the knowledge of medicine expands, the ability to be very concise and ensure that our doctors here and in Mexico and around the world are able to communicate and provide safe and high quality care to everyone. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to both parties for that report. If there's no additional comments or questions now, perhaps a way forward would be, this is merely a suggestion, because I don't think there is a need for a site visit, that we approve the 4-year curriculum to recognize UAG's international program with a 4-year curriculum with the express condition that it meet all conditions of 2089, statutory code of 2089.5, including the document log that was expressed by staff, that it be properly reviewed by the university's curriculum committee, and that staff provide this board a report when you think when you've done that review, a written report on that discrete issue. And you can also do a presentation if you like, but that we have some review from the experts. So that would be my motion, if the board wants to entertain that motion.
So I just want to clarify that before, as a point of information, that Dr. Nuevo, we're being very clear that with all the materials coming forward, being approved and being accepted, then we would go forward with this motion. Is that?
Okay.
I'm looking to you for some advice here.
That would make sense because this is an important issue. The expectation of any school is to ensure the quality of their training experience, and this should be documented in a curriculum committee log and minutes of at least an annual review of the quality of the experience. So you'd expect to see that. That's the document that would help tremendously in this question.
And that's the document that will make the difference. Is that correct?
In my point of view, yes.
Okay, thank you.
So another option would be, colleagues, to hold off on approval and wait till our May board meeting once we have this review of the documentation. But I leave it up to my colleagues, to Dr. Mitchell.
Yes, you know, I've been concerned. There's a trend in the United States as well to shorten the time of medical training. And it's primarily financial, unfortunately. And as Dr. Bolat has mentioned, medical knowledge is expanding, yet our training is getting shorter, which concerns me. And we seem to be putting things off more and more, where everybody does not even 1 but 2 fellowships now because they don't get adequate training at the lower levels, I think. I think that's one of the problems. We don't have generalists anymore. We have tiny specifists. And whenever you cut a program down, I think you have to be very cautious that you don't dilute the experience. And so that's my concern, and I'm saying that now, David, because I firmly agree that I'd like to see a little more information before I make a decision. Anything I did today would seem to be precipitous to me. I'm sure the integrity's there and the will is there. I just want to be sure that we're not, again, cutting back too much so that the students don't have the adequate information. Plus, it's not good for them either. If you enter the medical field, as you well know, without proper preparation, it can be a deep waters to swim in. So that would be my concerns. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any additional comments, questions? No? Is there a motion? Dr. Lewis?
I'm going to move that we approve the four-year curriculum to recognize UAG's international
And there are
program.
no audio questions.
All right. We're at the motion stage.
We're in a
Dr. Lewis?
motion stage.
Go ahead.
Can I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, approve the four-year curriculum to recognize UAG's international program, the four-year curriculum, with the caveat that we review the clinical experience training logs that were submitted back to staff for staff to review, along with expert opinion about those logs.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. As our medical board expert, and we thank you for your service in this, working with Mr. Warden, do you have a comfort level with that, the direction we're going in?
I actually, my recommendation would be to delay approval until we review the logs.
Okay. I think that's probably the wise course of action. So why don't Dr. Lewis, are you okay with amending the motion?
I'll amend
that we
the motion.
continue it until the May board meeting?
Okay, so we'll just receive additional information of the clinical experience logs back to this staff and to have a presentation at the next board meeting.
All right. Dr. Levine?
And Dr. Nuovo identified also the fact that more information about the competency assessment, mechanism for competency assessment.
All right.
Yes, that would be expected as a curriculum committee of a school, that they review that and have it documented in their minutes, in their review.
Thank you. Dr. Bolott?
One quick question. Also to that, I would like to ask, if it seems reasonable to my other committee members, if we could see some examples of documentation, because it's very important, not just what you do as faculty, but if we could have de-identified information to see what some of your records look like. Is that at all possible with de-identified?
I think that would help in terms of clarifying the experience and ensuring oversight of the school, because that oversight is the critical issue, especially as you change a program from 5 to 4 years. You want to make sure that there's adequate oversight on the quality of the training.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a motion. There's
David,
been
one more thing.
Yes, Dr.
As chair of the licensing committee, I would propose, in addition to this, that I get together with Mr. Warden and Dr. Nuevo prior to the next meeting, so that I can be fully informed and be part of the process as well.
Certainly, you can work with. You and I will work with our executive director in arranging something like that.
Second the motion.
Well, I think we have the gist of the motion. The gist of the motion is, as Dr. Lewis articulated, to continue this item to our May board meeting, to direct staff to work with the doctor in providing additional information around the curriculum, the logs, the comments that have been made by everyone at this table, and to prepare a report for us and to work with the university in good faith. And to include Dr. Lewis in his capacity as chair of the licensing committee in that, Dr. Bishop, I apologize, Dr. Bishop, our colleague, Dr. Bishop, where appropriate. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll have a full report at the May board meeting for action.
Second.
I think there's been a motion, there's been a second. I see no additional comment from the board. Is there any public comment on the motion? No. Are there any public comment on the phone?
And ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. You will hear a tone indicating you have been placed in queue. If you press star 1 prior to this announcement, We ask that you please do not do so again at this time. You may remove yourself from queue at any time by pressing the pound key. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up the handset for pressing the number. Once again, if you have a question, press star 1.
Okay. Wow. I hear no. Are there any comments from the phone? This is agenda item 14.
Randy, do we have any comments on the phone?
And at this time, there are no audio questions.
All right, thank you.
No comments on the
Thank you very much. All right, seeing none, Ms. Tuve, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat?
Aye.
Dr. Bishop?
Aye.
Judge Feinstein?
Aye.
Dr. Dr. Hawkins?
Aye.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Wright?
Aye.
Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano-Sewell?
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. I want to thank the university officials for being here today. Hopefully get this resolved, and we'll take action at our next board meeting. Thank you very much. Colleagues, we'll now move back to the regular agenda. That is item 6, Executive Management Reports. Ms. Kirkmeyer?
Well, good morning, members. I'm not going to be going over all of the administrative summary, the enforcement program summary, or the license program summary unless someone has a question. However, I do have a few items I would like to bring to your attention. At most meetings, we are talking about the enforcement and licensing staff and the great job that they do, which is true. However, today I just want to take a minute and thank our business service office and administrative staff. Without these two units, the board in its meetings would be at a standstill, and these are really the unsung heroes behind the board who never even know they're there until we need something. So I'd just like to take a moment and thank them for all the work that they do. I'd also like to draw the members' attention to page BRD 6A4, which is the board's fund condition. As you may remember from prior meetings, the board's general fund loans were scheduled to be repaid in fiscal year 15-16, 16-17, and 17-18. However, the board was notified by the Department of Consumer Affairs that this has actually changed, and the partial repayments are scheduled for fiscal years 16-17 and 17-18. The total repayment indicated now is $8 million, which will still leave a remaining $7 million. As the board knows, if the board's fund falls below our normal reserve levels that's set in statutory requirement of the 2 to 4 months, those loans will then need to be repaid prior to any discussion of a fee increase. At this time, the board's fund reserve is projected to be at 3.7 months at the end of this fiscal year, and then below the mandate out in 17-18. This is something the board staff will continue to watch closely and work with the department budget staff. Another budget-related item I want to bring to the board's attention is that the board's budget change proposals, and for new members, and just to remind everyone, it's been a while, those are how we go through the process of obtaining more funding into our budget and also obtaining new positions. But we had a budget change proposal to hire an additional staff in our central complaint unit and to increase our expert reviewer funding. Those both were approved and were placed in the governor's budget that was released earlier in January. Now, this is not to increase our expert reviewers' hourly rate, but it's actually to increase the board's budget for this line item because we were actually overexpending that line item the last few years, and we were having to use money from other line items in order to meet that demand. So we actually were approved for additional funding in that line item. Lastly, related to the budget, I wanted to point out that after the budget documents for the board meeting were completed, the board was notified that due to SB 467, the department had requested an allocation for an additional $577,000 to the board for the Attorney General's office. As you may remember, SB 467, which passed last year, requires reporting to the legislature by the Attorney General's office for each board under the department. The AG's office requested this funding for the additional support staff necessary to obtain the statistics to make the reports. At this time, the board's amount is an estimate. So we'll really be watching that as that goes through to see actually how much we are charged for that service, and then I'll get back to you on what those numbers actually are.
So we're paying $500,000 for them to do a report of how they're using our money and how they're receiving our money?
It's their statistics.
Their statistical surveys?
Statistics were required.
Is that something that we could have done in-house?
No, because it's specifically required to the requirement for the Attorney General's office to provide information to the legislature on their activities.
And we're paying for that?
Yes.
It's a fee-for-service payment with the Attorney General's office.
Please continue.
This budget change proposal, as well as the two for board staffing and increasing our expert reviewer allocation, will be going through the budget hearing process. If approved, they will be effective on July 1st of this year as part of the budget bill. While the two BCPs for the medical board are included in the fund condition, the AG BCP is not. So I'll provide an updated fund condition at the next meeting. I would also like to draw the members' attention to BRD A6A-24, which is the board's annual report that was recently released for fiscal year 14-15, and I encourage the members to review the report. As was previously discussed at the last couple meetings, there is an increase in the time it takes to review a complaint in the board's central complaint unit. The good news is that the central complaint unit is now fully staffed, and thank goodness for that, and the managers have met with Ms. Delp to develop a plan to address the increase in the time frame, which was actually discussed yesterday at the Enforcement Committee meeting. In addition, we are proposing a reclassification of another position to obtain an additional analyst to open complaints in the central complaint unit. That will be a big help. We are hopeful that by the summer we will have significantly decreased this average number of days. In addition, now that we have our non-sworn complaint investigative staff unit, we have separated out the reporting of those time frames for investigation between the non-sworn staff and the health quality investigative unit. Moving on, for those that were not in attendance at the Enforcement Committee meeting yesterday, I wanted to provide an update on the vertical enforcement report that is actually required to be submitted to the legislature in March. We are still waiting for reports for the last 2 fiscal years in order to complete the drafting of the report. We have our staff working on the reports and hope to have them complete within the next week. Once the reports are received, Ms. Scurry and Ms. Robinson will complete the drafting of the report and provide it to Dr. Yip for review. We will need to schedule an interim meeting towards the end of February for the full board to review and approve the report. It is important to note that this report is going to focus on providing the board statistics and an update since the last report in 2013. The biggest issue will be the movement of the investigators to the Department of Consumer Affairs. As you are aware, we have we involved both the Attorney General's office and the department initially in this process, and we will continue to do so once we have the reports and rewrite the analysis on those reports. We will be reaching out to members regarding a date for the interim meeting. I wanted to provide a brief report on the CARES program to let members know that on January 8th, the Department of Justice released the streamlined application for prescribers and dispensers. The registration process for those who apply online will no longer require a notary, and the process is all online and electronic. The one caveat is that all registrants will have to use an updated browser or a compliant browser to initially register for CARES. However, once they are registered, they are going to be allowed to still use an older browser. Once they get into the system, they're redirected either to CARES 1.0 or CARES 2.0. However, they won't meet all of the, receive all of the benefits of CARES 2.0, so we're still encouraging all users to try to get a compliant browser. All current users will also be prompted to update their security information. We have placed 2 newsletter articles in our winter, or actually our fall and our summer newsletters. We've sent out 2 emails to prescribers and are getting ready to send a 3rd email. We have also posted information regarding CARES and registration on our website and with bulletins from DOJ, as well as frequently asked questions. We will continue to update our website as necessary, and we'll be sending another email in the future and probably every month to inform physicians of the need to register by June of 2016, actually the end of June. In addition, we will put another article in the spring newsletter reminding physicians of the registration deadline. In regards to the issue of overprescribing psychotropic medication to foster children, I'm happy to report that in late November, the board contracted with a pediatric psychiatrist who is currently actually just finished. I just had an update last night, so this is new information. Actually, she just completed her review of the data that we received from the Department of Healthcare Services and Department of Social Services to determine whether the data is going to be able to identify physicians who may be inappropriately prescribing. Excuse me. And from her report, it has been identified that she's not able to make that determination based on the information that has been provided. So we're going to have to go back to the Department of Department of Healthcare Services and the Department of Social Services and find out if we can get the information that she's requesting. So the good thing about the report is she's actually identified the information that's going to be necessary. The Federation of State Medical Boards annual meeting will take place in San Diego, California this year. The meeting dates are April 28th to 30th, and in my report on 6A3 are the topics to be discussed at this meeting. If members are interested in attending, please let me know as soon as possible. Although we will not have an out-of-state trip request needed, we will need to seek approval, thank you, from the Department of Consumer Affairs to attend the meeting. I will be sending out an email asking those who are interested. Before I make my final item, I actually wanted to let the members know, because I believe some of the members have received a letter from the Little Hoover Commission. And if you did, I just wanted to kind of follow up on that. So on Thursday, February 4th, the Little Hoover Commission is going to conduct a public hearing, on occupational licensing in California. At this introductory hearing, the Commission will examine the economic linkages between occupational licensing and consumer prices, wages, and employment and service quality and availability. Commissioners will also learn about the effects of occupational licensing on upward mobility and innovation. Finally, the Commission will consider the nexus between public interest and occupational licensing and the legislative sunrise and sunset processes that govern occupational licensing in California. So depending on the outcome of this, it may impact our sunset review process, which is why I want to bring it to your attention. And speaking of the sunset review process, I wanted to let the members know that we will actually begin our sunset review process in a couple months. I know it seems like it was just yesterday to most of us, but we will start this again. It has been that long. We should be receiving the committee's questionnaire in March with the due date of November 1st, 2016, if the schedule is the same as it has been for the boards in the last few cycles. Once we complete our report, the Senate and Assembly Business and Professions Committees will review our report and provide us with follow-up questions. We will provide responses to those, and then in early 2017, a hearing will be scheduled. The legislature will then hopefully draft language to extend this board's sunset date for another 4 years until 2022, since it's currently set in 2018. Once we receive that questionnaire, I will notify the members, and this will be an ongoing process at each meeting as we bring the questions back and we define issues to put into that sunset review, hopefully culminating in a larger meeting in the October meeting to review and finalize that sunset review process.
October
or report.
this year?
October of this year. Yeah, it's quickly.
Okay.
Then finally, in regards to Breeze, after the last meeting, Mr. Serrano Sewell and I met with the department's executive staff and OIS to discuss the Breeze system specifically related to the board and the board's current change requests and concerns. The department had reviewed our change requests and identified 45 to 50 that they thought would be a priority for the board. This would actually be in addition to work authorizations that we had put forward as well. After discussion, we decided that the board needs to meet with the department to review all of the change requests and actually identify resources necessary to complete those requests. The hope would be that once these requests are reviewed and discussed, the changes will be able to be completed by the end of this year. These changes would be the ones that specifically impact staff and cause delays in staff's processing or additional work. In addition, the executive team stated, and this is really good news, I alluded to this yesterday, that they will be looking to revamp the department's online license lookup. Once Release 2 is actually finalized, and it just was released on January 19th, the department will begin looking at this project. The intention is for the department to work with IT staff at the boards, including medical board, to develop requirements for the system and then work on its development. This is great news for the board, its members, and the public. The intent is to make the system more user-friendly. Lastly, I recently attended a demo for a new reporting tool that is scheduled to be released by the department for Breeze reports as well. It's going to be released in the summer, and it should assist the board in being able to run its own reports. It'll also allow managers to be able to run those reports. Of course, our high complex reports will still be performed by our IT unit, but they will be able to put those in a area where actually our managers, once they're developed, they're going to be able to go in and review those, run those reports on their own. We will continue to work with the department on our Breeze concerns and issues in order to complete our change requests in an effort to improve the system for the board. And that concludes my report. I had a lot, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
But are there any questions?
You touched on a lot of issues, Ms. Kirkmeyer. Colleagues, do you have any questions or comments to our executive director? I'm looking to my left, seeing none. To my right? Okay, thank you for that report. And I found the meeting with the Department of Consumer Affairs officials very productive around the Breeze discussion and how it's going to be implemented, and enhancing that working relationship between the medical board and the chief IT people at DCA. So I was really encouraged by that. Are there any comments from those in the audience on Ms. Kirkmeyer's report? Yes. Oh, thank you.
No questions on the
Sir,
phone line.
is this? Please. Just state your name.
I just wanted to make a very quick comment. My name is Long Do. I'm from the California Medical Association. I wanted to report to the board that the CMA has been receiving a high volume of calls related to people getting locked out for a time after they log into Cures for the first time since the upgrade. So we've alerted the DOJ, and we're working on with them to resolve the issue.
Thank you. Thank you for being here today. All right. Are there any other comments from those in the audience? Seeing none, are there any comments from the phone on the executive director's report?
There are no comments on the line.
No comments? Okay, wonderful. We'll then move on to the next agenda item 7, update from the Department of Consumer Affairs, which may include updates pertaining to the department's administrative services, human resources, enforcement, information technology, communications and outreach, as well as legislative, regulatory, and policy matters. Mr. Burke.
Thank you. Mr. President and board members, thank you for granting me the opportunity to address you today on behalf of the Department of Consumer Affairs. My name is John Burke, and I started work as the Board and Bureau Relations Manager at the department in October 2015. I'm very happy to be here, and I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome the board's two newest members, Katrina Lawson and Catherine Feinstein. I will be providing updates on 6 subjects that will be of interest to the board and its staff, some of which may echo what the executive director just said, so my apologies if some of this is duplicative. The first item on which I shall provide an update is the Breeze system. DCA launched the second release of Breeze on Tuesday, January the 19th, adding 7 boards and 1 bureau to the Breeze system. We now have a total of 18 programs on Breeze. During the first day, the programs in the second release processed over $131,000 in online transactions. Once the programs in the second release are stabilized on Breeze, DCA will begin the process of conducting a cost-benefit analysis before moving any other programs over to the Breeze system. The next subject I'll address is the Statement of Economic Interest form, the Form 700. As appointed board members, you are required to complete the Form 700 upon your appointment and annually every April the 1st upon leaving the board. The department is utilizing an online paperless Form 700 filing system called NetFile for its nearly 1,600 designated filers. NetFile is web-based and used by several city and county governments. NetFile will be sending an email to all board members by the end of the month with directions on how to log in to the new system. The board's assigned Conflict of Interest coordinator will be the point of contact available for assistance to help with login questions. We are very excited by this change and the convenience it will provide to ensure board members are always in compliance. There are also some upcoming changes to the recruitment and hiring process being initiated by Cal HR. The Office of Human Resources at DCA is working on changes to the current recruitment hiring process. The new system is scheduled to go live today. A memorandum providing additional information will be sent out to all DCA administrators and executive officers by early next week. A meeting has been scheduled for all personnel liaisons, which will take place this coming Tuesday, January the 26th. We would like to ask that you encourage your personnel liaisons to attend this meeting. In December 2015, the board's bureaus, boards, committees and commission under DCA received a letter from the Little Hoover Commission regarding its upcoming study of occupational licensing in California. The Commission is an independent state agency comprised of members of the legislature, public appointees of the governor and legislature. The Commission studies various topics related to government operations and provides reports and recommendations on improvements. Little Hoover Commission staff met with the department in early December to discuss the study. DCA is working with the Commission to answer any questions they have regarding occupational licensing. The Commission intends to hold 2 public hearings, the first on February the 4th in Sacramento to review the macroeconomic principles behind occupational licensing. The agenda may be viewed on the Commission's website. The second hearing is scheduled for March with an intended focus on the people that are impacted by occupational licensing requirements, such as veterans and persons with criminal records. In January, DCA sent an email to all programs notifying them of the letter and the study. If the EO or board have any questions about this study or hearing, please contact Melinda McLean, the DCA Deputy Director of Legislation. The department has also initiated changes to its Enforcement Academy. DCA held 6 focus groups with board enforcement staff to look at the current courses offered through the DCA Enforcement Academy and how to best revise and reorganize these courses to meet the needs of our boards. We are anticipating rollout of the whole new curriculum in July 2016. DCA requires trainers from the boards to act as subject matter experts, and we are requesting each board provide 1 or 2 individuals so that only a few boards are not bearing the burden of assisting with this training. We ask that you provide the names of individuals identified to Sonia Ross in the DCA Solid Unit within the next month. The final subject I should address is board member required trainings. As we start the new year, DCA wants to we have scheduled 4 board member orientation trainings in Sacramento for 2016. As appointed board members, you are required to complete orientation training within 1 year of appointment and reappointment to the board. We are excited to now offer online registration for this training. An email was sent to all board members in December with details. If you did not receive it, please let me know and I will be happy to provide you with a copy. We also want to remind you to make sure you're up to date on your required sexual harassment, ethics, and defensive driver trainings. Sexual harassment was due in 2015. If you have not completed this training, we encourage you to do so as soon as possible so that you may be in compliance. Thank you for your time, and this concludes my update from the department. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Burke. Are there any questions or comments from the members? Looking to my left, to my right, seeing none. Are there any comments from the audience? Seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
We have no comments on the phone.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your report.
Thank you.
Now moving on to the next agenda item, item 7, discussion and possible action on legislation regulations. 8. Item 8.
All right, thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. So just first, I'd like to report, it was already reported that Sarah Huckel is here from Senate BMP Committee, and also yesterday, Janelle Miyashiro, she's new in the Senate Office of Research, and she attended our meeting yesterday. And just one other item I'd like to bring up, our 2016 law books are out. I have some if any members want them, otherwise they'll be mailed to you. So if you go to tab 8, 2016 legislation, all of the tabs are actually 2-year bills, and these bills, none of them have moved, they haven't been amended, so I'm not going to go over them unless any members have questions. You will find in your packets a 2016 legislative calendar, and this shows all the deadlines in the legislative process. The 2016 legislative session has begun, but the bill introduction deadline is not until February 19th. So this will be my shortest presentation of the year. Okay,
Well,
so
before you start, I mean, we're often asked as a board by legislative staff, legislators, the executive branch, to opine on legislation. And that can often, when it gets very busy at the legislature, there's numerous bills for us to take a look at.
Yes.
So thank you for your hard work, and we're grateful for the
Next
shorter
meeting, you'll be seeing many, many more.
Oh, really? Okay. All right. Thank you for that.
Okay, so after the legislative calendar is your tracker list. And so as you can see, there's only one new bill that we need to go over and take a position on today. But before we do that, I'd like to give you a brief update on the two proposals that the board approved at the last board meeting. So the first proposal is the cleanup bill, and as you remember, there was a lot of, I can go over them if you'd like, we went over them at the last meeting, but there was some cleanup for allied health licensees, some cleanup related to the Board of Podiatric Medicine to make the law actually reflect what happens in real practice, and some cleanup for physicians. Those items were all approved. If you'd like me to go over them, I can. They're in your packets. Or they're not in their packets this time, but I can go over the items. But basically, what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for an author. I've actually found an author for the cleanup proposals. It will be Assemblymember Holden, and he actually sits on the Assembly Business and Professions Committee, and the bill should be introduced in the next week or so. So that's good news for us. Do any members want me to actually go over the provisions, or do any members have questions? No?
Two new members. I would suggest is just as a matter of information to maybe just take a short time.
Okay.
It's okay with the chair? I know you're trying.
You can be as brief as possible.
Sorry.
Okay, so some of the provisions in allied health are to give us similar authority that we have for physicians, so allowing us to take revocation if they're sex offenders, allowing us to do probation as a discipline option, allowing the petitioners to petition for reinstatement. It's some of the things that we've done, but we just want to make sure we have clear authority in law. For the Board of Podiatric Medicine, right now in the Board of Podiatric Medicine statutes, it says that the medical board actually issues their licenses. That's not actually what happens, and so that came to our attention last year during a legislative proposal, so we want to fix that law to make it actually reflect what happens, which is the Board of Podiatric Medicine issues their own licenses. And then for the cleanup for physicians, there's a variety of things. The reasons a board can deny a postgraduate training authorization letter, to allow an existing licensee to apply for a limited practice license, to ensure that the board has to approve the reasons for a limited practice license is issued, and lastly, when the board has authority when a patient is deceased to make a reasonable attempt to notify their next of kin, and if we've done that, then we can provide that declaration to their physician to locate their medical records. We're running into some issues where the physician doesn't actually have the medical records. They're in the health facility or in the hospital or wherever where those medical records are located, so we'd amend that law to reflect that. So those are kind of a brief overview. So there was one proposal in there that is not going to be going into the cleanup, and that was we were going to fix law related to a probationary license to allow that to be posted on our website for longer. That had potential opposition, so that part didn't get taken, but everything else did. Okay, so if no one has questions, the next proposal we discussed was related to a new resigned license discipline option. Last week, board staff met with the California Medical Association and discussed this proposal. And this would allow a physician who is facing discipline that is more than a public letter of reprimand, but less than a revocation, to stipulate to resign their license. And this is primarily for the situation for physicians that no longer want to practice and are at the end of their careers but have never had discipline, but cannot meet the terms and conditions of probation because they don't want to practice anymore. And one of those terms and conditions that they'd be actively practicing. And so a resigned license would be considered discipline, and the physician could not come back to the board and petition for reinstatement. And this is a necessary provision to be included to ensure consumer protection. When we met with CMA, they expressed concerns with the permanent nature of the resigned license, and they also weren't sure that a resigned license would be a more palatable option for physicians since it's still discipline and it's permanent. Because we're kind of in a hard situation here where we don't really have much room to negotiate, we can't make it less than what we're proposing. Staff is suggesting that we withdraw the proposal at this time, and if it's something that we want to consider in the future, that maybe the sunset process would be a good way. And I can kind of explain the risk that we run is if we go ahead and secure an author and it gets introduced, there has to be some kind of negotiation process. And sometimes even when you're the sponsor and you say, no, I don't, this is a very hard line for us, we can't negotiate, sometimes it happens anyway. And so for staff, we don't want to risk that and consumer protection and put it up to the risk that it might be negotiated down. So we think at this juncture, the best option is just to withdraw the proposal. But I would need a motion from the board.
So moved.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Is there any discussion from the board? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public? On the motion, any comments from the phone?
No audio questions at this time.
All right, seems like the right thing to do. Ms. Tuve, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Aye. Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Gonadev? Sorry. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Wright? Aye. Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries.
All right, thank you. So moving on to our first and only bill, SB 563 PAN, and that should be at the end of your packets. This bill has to do with utilization review, and it would prohibit an employer or any entity conducting utilization review from providing any financial incentive or consideration to a physician based on their utilization review, so based on the number of modifications, delays, or denials made by the physician. This bill will give the administrative director the authority to review any compensation agreement, payment schedule, or contract between the employer or any entity conducting utilization review on behalf of the employer. CMA is actually the sponsor of this bill, and according to CMA, it would increase transparency and accountability within the workers' compensation process. There's currently no explicit prohibition in law related to utilization review to ensure that a physician's judgment for medical necessity is not compromised by financial incentives. This bill would promote the board's mission of consumer protection, and staff recommends that the board take a support position on this bill, but I would need a motion.
Also moved.
Moved by Dr. Lewis, seconded by Ms. Yaroslavsky. Are there any comments from the members? Seeing none, are there any comments from the public? Yes, sir.
Again, my name is Long Do. I'm from the California Medical Association, and as you've heard, CMA is the sponsor of SB 563. We thank the medical board staff for recommending support of the bill, and we urge the board to adopt that recommendation. We look forward to working with you and with the staff on these issues. The bill is intended to address some pretty serious problems in the workers' comp system. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Are there any additional comments from the audience? Seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any calls on the line?
No audio questions at this time.
All right, thank you very much. Ms. Tuve, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Aye. Dr. Bishop?
Aye.
Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Wright? Aye. Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, the motion carries.
Thank you. And before I conclude my presentation, I just wanted to provide an update on the board's next legislative day. So I'll be working with Mr. Serrano Sewell on a time frame for the next legislative day, and once we've decided on a month, I'll be reaching out to all board members to see if you're interested in participating. Then I will send out a poll to interested members to try to set up a legislative day that works best for everyone. Just to give you a little background, it's kind of early. I know we did it in February last year because we have some new speaker, that there'll be some new appointments. We don't want to set up a whole bunch of meetings and then have them be with people that are no longer on the committee, so I think it's best just to wait a little bit. But I just wanted to give you some background on that. That's why it's not as early this year, but I will be working on it with Board President Serrano Sewell. And that concludes my legislative presentation, and there's just the regulations matrix.
Okay, I'll just make a quick plug for the Ledge Day.
Okay.
We did it last year. It was very successful. We met with numerous legislators. It was targeted, the chairs of BNP and their staff. And it really did a great job of putting a face to the medical board. They like to hear from the members. They hear from staff, which is very important, but they want to hear from the members and what we're thinking. And we didn't agree on every policy issue, but we were able to provide what our rationales are. And so it was a very productive day. And I would say this year, A, we're going to do it again, but B, it's crucial to do it this year. And with our sunset coming up, I mean, there'll actually be significant policy issues to discuss with the legislature and their staff. So looking forward to getting that scheduled once the committee assignments settle in. Thank you.
Good. And the last item is just the regulations matrix. It's in your packets, and it just there. Do you have any questions?
Any questions on the matrix? I don't see any.
All right. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
All right. We'll now move to item 9, update, discussion, and possible action on recommendation from the Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee. Dr. Lewis.
Oh boy, I'm on. Wait a minute. Okay, those you know me. I hate reading from a script, so just bear with me. I have a lot of information to cover in a short period of time. Many people who were at the committee meeting are in this audience and also in this committee. The Public Outreach, Education, and Wellness Committee, which I chair, met yesterday afternoon. And the first agenda item the committee discussed was the newly named Checkup on Your Doctor's License campaign. The branding. After the committee met in October, our last board meeting, I, along with staff, worked to revise the outreach plan and campaign to address the concerns raised by committee members and the board and also of the public. Members here should have a copy in their packet of the outreach plan. It's under tab 4, under yesterday's series of tabs. I presented a new campaign outreach plan to the committee and the activities that have been planned and prioritized. Does anybody need me to go over that plan again, or you can refer to your board packet for those details? Overall, the committee agreed with the direction of the new campaign and plan, and I also presented a newly designed brochure, first ever. This is to take, hopefully take the confusion, ambiguity away from a previous brochure mock-ups. So at the committee meeting, the committee approved moving forward with such a brochure, and we will direct staff to do so along with the plan. The board also presented a website demonstration of possible enhancements to make the board's website more user-friendly. And these include homepage design changes. They're also in your materials, in your packets. And I think you all agree, the people that were here, that the presentation from the staff and the web designers was excellent and a marked improvement over previous website designs. So again, in the middle of this, I applaud and shout out to people that helped design that. It was very, very well received. The changes highlight the new campaign and allow consumers to easily click on to check a doctor's license, file a complaint, and look up any public documents that might be related to that provider. There was also general consensus from the committee and the public that enhancements to the board's website, as I said, would be an improvement. The board and staff and I will review the comments that were made from committee members and from members in the audience. And before the next committee meeting, next board meeting, the committee will bring back the outreach plan, any changes, and have a timeline of outreach events. Now, many of you know, and we discussed that the month in March 6th to March 12th, has been designated National Consumer Protection Week, and we're going to try to get as many of the outreach plan out there to coincide with that week, knowing that afterwards we'll continue to work on other outreach programs. If the board agrees with the direction of the outreach plan, campaign, plan, and web design changes, we can direct staff to move forward with the caveat that the committee will continue to fine-tune the plan and outreach materials and continue to enhance the website design in the future as needed.
Do other members of the committee want to comment on its work? Ms. Pines? No? Sure, Ms. Kirkmeyer.
I actually wanted to add one thing yesterday. Sorry, Dr. Levine. We actually yesterday heard from our staff that we actually have 91,000 hits that come in, and that was for 1 month, right, Ms. Clark? 1 month that had come in on our search. Well, actually, DCA sent me the numbers last night for the Breeze system, and it's for all license types that are in Breeze. So that would have been Release 1 board. So there's about 10 boards. I'm not sure what the total number of license types was, but for the whole whole year of 2015, there were 31,787,122,000 hits to the license lookup from the Breeze site. So that was basically 32 million, about impressive that there had been that many hits to their license lookup. So, and again, it's not just physicians, but it's everyone. So I wanted to give that information to everyone.
Dr. Levine?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Dr. Lewis and staff for the quite impressive array of options and opportunities for consumer outreach. And there are 2 phases to this. Before you can take action, you need to have knowledge and awareness. And so closing the knowing gap and then is the first step. Closing the knowing-doing gap is the second step. And I think you've given us an impressive, ambitious agenda to accomplish this.
Thank you for the comment and support. I appreciate it very much.
Well, it was a pretty hefty charge to the committee to produce these documents and come up with the plan, and the committee's done so in a very short time frame, and so we thank you for that. Are there additional comments, observations from the members? Seeing none?
No.
Okay, that was just a report. Are there any comments from the audience? Ms. McGifford.
No questions to us on.
Okay, please.
My name is Lisa McGifford. I'm with Consumers Union Safe Patient Project. I've got a form for you. We just want to let you know that we support this work ongoing, and we're happy to see it progress and look forward to working with you more on it. The changes that the committee has recommended and looks like it's in process to eliminate the initial hurdle that patients looking for information see with the term verify a license, and so they're going to make it a little bit more friendly, like look up your doctor's license or look up your the license, and with explanation. So I think that is going to go a long way to give people access to a lot of the information on the website, and we provided input to the committee, and I won't go into details about that. The thing that we would want to point to there is no budget so far, and I think we'll see that next. But there, is acknowledgement that there are limited funds to do this outreach, and so one of the glaring omissions from the plan is social media, which is an inexpensive way to get information out to many people on Facebook and Twitter and places where people are constantly looking at information. So yesterday we encouraged the committee to look at that. I think you could get some interns to do that pretty inexpensively. We have interns in our office that do a lot of social media, and we get a lot of response to our issues using those venues. So I encourage you to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional comments from the audience? Seeing none?
We have no comments on the line.
Thank you very much. And thank you again for that report.
You're welcome.
We'll now move on to item 10. And Ms. Toof will be passing something out now. That is the update, discussion, and possible action on a recommendation from the Patient Notification Task Force. Please recall, colleagues, at the last October meeting, yes, the board expressed a wish that it create a Patient Notification Task Force. With that in mind, I appointed myself, Dr. Lewis, because there was a lot of overlap into his outreach committee work, Dr. Lewis, Dr. Levine and Ms. Lawson, to this task force committee. Our first duty at yesterday's meeting was to take up the mission statement, if you will, of the task force. And we had a good discussion with amongst ourselves, with staff and the public. And we had asked Dr. Levine to work with staff in coming up with a revised statement, if you will, for your consideration and I hope approval. So if you can just take a moment, please, to take a look at this mission statement, if you will. It has the preamble, which gives the context in which the task force is operating, its mission statement, and its objectives. The most important objective of which is to meet and provide this board with a final report and recommended course of action. So I'll just let that sink in for a second, and also try to give a brief explanation of what we did yesterday. And then I'll ask the task force members to comment if they wish. So we went through the mission statement, which you have before you. Then we had presentations from staff on the sort of the pertinent issues. Information as to when the physician is placed on probation or when disciplinary action is needed. Information available on the board's website regarding a physician with discipline. That was also discussed in Mr. Lewis's committee. And then next we had a discussion on the board's signage that is required to be posted by physicians. We also had a presentation from our attorneys as to the legislative history with that signage in a physician's office, because it is statutory, it is very prescriptive and specific. So basically, and Ms. Webb, please correct me, the legislative history is such that the words on that sign cannot be amended through a regulatory process and would require a statutory change.
They can't be amended to include the type of information that the task force would be interested in adding without a legislative change.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. Okay, and then lastly, that was pretty much it. I also want to thank the public. They had a lot of really good suggestions about enhancements to the website that I thought I want to incorporate in a memorandum that I'll work on with Kimberly to the task force and to the members about what our next task force meeting will look like at the May meeting. So we will convene again in May. But the first meeting was just to sort of lay the groundwork, have a discussion, that sort of thing. So if you've had an opportunity to look at the Patient Notification Task Force mission statement, I would now entertain a motion to approve or suggestions for edits. Dr. Lewis?
I have a suggestion for one edit in the...
Wordsmith it today.
No, I don't want to wordsmith it.
Okay.
And this is part of the preamble. You want the mission or the preamble?
Well, what
do you want?
Preamble, please.
Okay. I just want to make one comment. Even though we received a majority of comments from Consumers Union, which we appreciate, I think it's the public, response to concerns from the public, because we also heard from other public members from the last board meeting and this board meeting. So I would just say the word raised by the public and board members.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments? For Dr. Lewis, do you want it?
No more.
All right, I appreciate that. Good point. Looking to my left, my right? Anything? No? Okay, wonderful. Is there a motion to adopt with that change?
Move to adopt.
Thank you, Dr. Lewis. Is there a second? Second, Dr. Bulott. Before we take a roll call, are there any comments from the public? Thank you. Ms. McGifford?
My name is Lisa McGifford. I'm with Consumers Union Safe Patient Project. And with regard to the last comment to edit, this task force was created because of the petition that Consumers Union filed. no one else was bringing this forward before. So we are pretty disappointed with the task force and the things that went on yesterday. Instead of a patient notification task force discussing the concept of doctors being honest with their patients by informing them about being on probation, the task force continued down the current path that puts a burden on patients to find out something that most of them don't even know exists. While we support clearer information on the website when a doctor in practice is on probation due to their own behavior, that is not a substitute for notification to their patients. Doctors withholding this information from their patients, and this board encouraging that by your actions and a clear message that this is the unknowing patient's responsibility, not the doctor's, is the worst kind of violation of the doctor-patient trust. Put yourself in the place of a harmed patient who discovers after the fact that their doctor was on probation for the same behavior that harmed them. I have provided you with a copy of Consumers Union's revised proposal to the task force and board in response to the board's concerns in the October meeting that doctors on probation for minor issues should not have to inform their patients. We have proposed that this requirement apply to doctors on probation for serious reasons such as sexual misconduct, gross negligence, and serious substance abuse problems. We also propose that the manner of informing patients follow a similar procedure in the current disciplinary guidelines to address the concerns raised in October that our petition was too prescriptive regarding how the notice is given. We would appreciate your consideration of that proposal, and we look forward to continuing to follow the work of the task force and the board. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I'll take this opportunity just to make a couple of observations. If the task force or the board has left anyone with the impression that we're out to place the burden on the patient and the consumer, couldn't apologize for that, but nothing could be further from the truth. The task force and the board is committed to upholding its mission of consumer protection. It should be noted, because I think it's important, that this board, on 2 previous occasions, has declined not to pursue a petition around notification. And it's done so for good public policy reasons, in my view, that was discussed at the last board meeting. The burden, the clogging up the administrative review process, concerns about the physician-patient relationship. There was a healthy dialogue at this board on 2 occasions, and we've decided on the balance of what our charge is not to pursue what was requested. I think it's an issue where reasonable minds can differ. And if you fall on one side or the other, it doesn't mean you're opposed to consumer protection. It just means that you want to fulfill that mandate in a different way. So, but the board is sensitive to the concerns of not only the consumers union, but any public entity or stakeholder that wants to share their view. So it was with that sensitivity in mind that the board created this task force. Whether it fulfills the mission of any particular interest group, who's to say, but we will deliberate in a public way. This could have been a task force of 2 people, and we thought it best that it be expanded so it is subject to the sunshine laws of the state, so our deliberations are in public because the subject matter is so important. So that is just a long way of saying we take this issue very seriously. It's incredibly complicated. I understand people feel strongly about it, and I respect their opinions. But, you know, we need to be consistent with what we've done and, you know, proceed accordingly. If there's no additional comments from the audience on the motion, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments
No
on the
questions via phone.
All right. Thank you. Ms. Toof, can you please call the roll?
Dr. Bolat? Dr. Bishop?
Aye.
Judge Feinstein?
Aye.
Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine? Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Ms. Wright? Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip? Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye. Thank you. The motion carries. Moving on to item 11, update, discussion, and possible action of recommendations from the Enforcement Committee. Dr.
During the Enforcement Committee meeting yesterday, the Chief of Enforcement, Christina Delp, provided an enforcement program update. Ms. Delp stated that the Medical Board's expert review training will be held on Saturday, March 19, 2016 at the UC San Diego School of Medicine. The training agenda will include an overview of the expert program's mission and expectations, legal considerations and case scenario discussions, and segments on testifying from the perspective of the administrative law judge and the Deputy Attorney General and the Defense Counsel. A formal invitation to attend the training will be sent out to experts and potential experts in the next couple of weeks. Ms. Delp also states training with the Office of the Administrative Hearings will begin on January 29, 2016. The judges from the Office of Administrative Hearings will receive training on anatomy and system of the body. Ms. Delp stated she may reach out to the board members to assist with identifying speaker willing to provide the training. Ms. Delp also informed the committee that on January 5, 2016, board management and staff from the Lawton Probation Office met with me to discuss how the probation unit operates. During the visit, I learned the daily function that the staff perform to monitor licensee placed on probation. The meeting was productive as new policy and procedure were formulated and will be implemented to streamline and improve the probation monitoring process. Ms. Delp also stated on December 8, 2015, board staff met with staff from the Department of Consumer Affairs, Department's Health Quality Investigation Unit, and Office Attorney General to discuss an issue raised by Senior Assistant Attorney General Ms. Castro concerning the need for two investigators to work a complaint separately when a case is being investigated both criminally and administratively. Ms. Delp stated the meeting adjourned with agreement that staff from the Attorney General's Office and Health Quality Investigation Unit would meet at a later date to resume discussions with hopes to draft a parallel policy for the investigation that will be presented to the Department of Consumer Affairs for consideration. Ms. Delp concluded her update stating the enforcement program managers have been working diligently to evaluate the complaint handling process to find ways to improve the amount of time it takes to process complaints. To state to achieve the goal, management will be adjusting staff caseloads and will also be submitting a proposal to the Department of Consumer Affairs to reorganize the reporting structure of the central complaint unit. Ms. Robinson provided the committee with an update on the board's demographic study. Ms. Robinson stated on December 20, 2015, the California Research Bureau met with interest parties that include Dr. Jackson, Dr. Minister, and Dr. Lane to discuss their concerns and impact behind the study. The Bureau advised that once they finalize the research design and methodology, this information will be provided to board member Dr. Kraus for review and approval. The Bureau also reported it would take them 2 months to finish their analysis of the data and additional 2 months to finalize the finding and provide a report to the board. Ms. Robinson and Ms. Curry provide an update from the Vertical Enforcement Report, the VE. The mandate report is due to the legislature by March 1, 2016. The report will consist of 3 primary areas. It will provide statistical data, improvements made to the vertical enforcement model since the last report was provided in 2013, and any recommendations. Ms. Robinson stated the final report will be presented to the board as a special meeting at the end of February. The investigation and vertical enforcement program update will provide by Mr. Chris and Ms. Nichols from the Health Quality Investigation Unit and by Ms. Castro from the Health Quality Enforcement Section of the AG Office. Mr. Chris stated as the newly appointed Chief of the Division of Investigation, his priorities for the Health Quality Investigation Unit are to fulfill vacant investigative positions as soon as possible, to complete the staff retention project, and to develop a strategic plan that will focus on updating the investigative training manual and the development of a statewide training plan for the investigators. Ms. Nichols provided information about how the unit prioritizing its investigation cases. She stated cases will be processed in accordance with the priorities set forth in law pursuant to Business and Professional Code Section 222.0.05. Ms. Nichols stated that the investigator working high-priority cases 4 days a week and low-priority cases 1 day a week, with case being rotated weekly to ensure all complaints are being handled. She stated this operational plan will help to decrease the case processing timeframes. Ms. Castro stressed there are two issues that are affecting the vertical enforcement model in being able to process cases in a timely manner. Ms. Castro stated the issue of vacant investigator position continues to be a problem. As a result, she stated cases get reassigned, and this affects the Attorney General's Health Quality Enforcement section from being able to complete cases timely. She stated the second issue is cases are being handled criminally by the Health Quality Investigation Unit, and which has occurred, the cases are removed from aspects of the Attorney General's office. As a result, the board's complaint are not being prosecuted pursuant to the vertical enforcement model. To resolve this issue, Ms. Castro proposed the use of investigator from the Attorney General's office to assist with investigating the board's cases. Ms. Depp gave a presentation on the probation unit's roles and functions. She explained the different probation terms and conditions that can be imposed, and also explained how the staff in the probation unit monitors the probationers' compliance with each condition. And lastly, the committee members, Ms. Jaworski, requested board staff to provide information about the recruiting methodology used to reach out and recruit experts at the next meeting. That concludes the report.
Thank you, Dr. Yip, for that report. Are there any questions or from the board? Comments on Dr. Yip's report? Seeing none, are there any additional comments from the audience on the Enforcement Committee's report? I see no comments from the public present. Any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
We do have a question from the line of Carmen Delber. Carmen, your line is open.
All right. Oh, Dr. Levine?
We have a comment.
Oh, I'm going to go to a board member, then we'll go back to the phone. Okay. Thank you. Dr. Levine?
Just one of the things that would be helpful in terms of a report back to the board on the recruitment of expert witnesses would be some analysis of the hit rate, that is, those to whom outreach is made to serve. For those who decline, can we understand what the obstacle for attracting talent to do this work? I feel the need to correct Ms. Castro's statement yesterday that this is pro bono work. It is not pro bono work. These physicians are paid to do this work. There are some questions about whether the hourly rate is sufficient, particularly for the very highly compensated specialties, orthopedics, neurosurgery, but it is not pro bono work. They are reimbursed for their time.
Yeah, thank you for that. Are there additional comments, going back to comments from the members? Dr. Yip?
I have reached out to Ms. Castro yesterday that we can have feedback from her office as far as the shortage in the expert training, expert in certain area, that I myself or the board or the president can actually personally send them a letter, invite them to come to the meeting and being trained as experts. Some of those, as I say, they don't get paid much, but being honored to be part of the process probably would draw them to the training. So.
That's a great suggestion. See if we can incorporate that. All right, wonderful. Ms. Jaroslawski?
Might I suggest that the reimbursement rate might be an issue, in fact, as it is in most issues having to do with the medical community anyway, that it might be an opportunity to take a look and do outreach to find out, would there be a difference if there was a better level of compensation to at least compensate for time being spent, not commensurate with what you normally would make, but to help defer costs and expenses. So within that conversation for the expert review, people that are coming versus those that are not participating, I think that that should be something that we should all be aware of.
Okay. Thank you for that. Are there were no comments from the audience on Dr. Yip's report. I'll do a last call for that. None. Are there any comments from the phone now? Thank you.
Do we have any comments on the line?
There are no audio questions at this time.
Thank you. Thank you again for that report, and those suggestions will be incorporated into staff's follow-up. We'll now move to agenda item 12, the Attorney General's report.
Good morning, board members. Terry Jones, Supervising Deputy Attorney General with the Health Quality Enforcement Section, appearing on behalf of Ms. Castro, who has taken ill and returned to Los Angeles. A very brief report. I want to update the members on the status of hirings at the Attorney General's office in the Health Quality Enforcement Section. We recently hired a new attorney in the San Diego office. We're in the process of hiring 2 new attorneys in the Los Angeles office. We are going to be interviewing for a replacement for the supervising Deputy Attorney General, Tom Lazar, who retired recently. We will be interviewing in February for that. We are anticipating the retirement of Jose Guerrero, our SDAG in San Francisco, and we're preparing to quickly backfill in that position as well. So,
when does he retire?
At the end of April.
End of April.
Yes.
Okay.
That's our basic update for you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Was that? I'm sorry.
That was a request for questions.
That was a report? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for that report. Yes, are there any comments from the members? Seeing none, I'm looking to my right, to my left. Any comments, questions? Thank you, Mr. Jones.
Thank you.
We want to make sure we send something special to the San Francisco office. He's just done an outstanding job. Public comment? In San Diego, yeah, all the retiring Deputy Attorney Generals. Are there any public comment on the report? Seeing none, are there any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
No comments via phone.
All right. Now moving on to agenda item 13, Special Faculty Permit Review Committee recommendations. Doctor?
Yes, thank you very much. So the Special Faculty Review Committee, as described in your pages BRD 13.1 through 4, held a teleconference meeting on December 3rd, 2015, and we reviewed 2 applications. One application was received from Loma Linda School of Medicine and one from Stanford University School of Medicine. In addition to the Stanford University School of Medicine request, they requested an exemption to waive the requirement in B Business and Professions Code Section 2168.1A5 for their applicant. And for both applicants, we're going to listen to their specialty, their qualifications, as well as their responsibilities at their respective universities. We'll start first with Loma Linda's applicant, Dr. Fabrizio Luca. And Dr. Luca's area of expertise is surgery, specialized in the area of robotic rectal cancer surgery. Dr. Luca's medical school and postgraduate training can be found on BRD 13.2 through 13.3 of your packets. Dr. Luca has a long and distinguished career in gastrointestinal abdominal pelvic surgery at the European Institute of Oncology in Milan, Italy, including but not limited to the following list of responsibilities and directorships. He was the director of the Multidisciplinary Surgical Techniques Division for Gastrointestinal Surgery, the director of Integrated Abdominal Surgery, Division of Abdominopelvic Surgery, and the director of Abdominopelvic Surgery at the School of Robotic Surgery. Dr. Luca developed an original technique for the fully robotic treatment of colorectal malignancies, which was published in 2009 in the Annals of Surgical Oncology at the European Institute of Oncology in Milan, Italy. He is a PI on the robotic versus laparoscopic resection of rectal cancer, and he has published extensively in the field of surgery for rectal cancer and authored several seminal papers in this field. Dr. Luca has trained well over 50 surgeons in robotic surgical breast section of rectal cancer. His current responsibilities at Loma Linda, he holds a full-time faculty appointment as professor of surgery at Loma Linda, and if approved for the special faculty permit appointment by the board, Dr. Luca will provide instruction on part of Loma Linda's education program, which involves seeing patients, along with fulfilling his clinical teaching responsibilities ranging from lectures, teaching sessions, and clinical research. Loma Linda has expressed a great need for Dr. Luca's expertise in the fight against colorectal cancer. The committee recommends that the board approve Dr. Luca for special faculty permit appointment, and I would like to make the following motion. The board approves Dr. Fabrizio Luca for a Business and Professions Code Section 2168.1A1B, special faculty permit appointment at Loma Linda School of Medicine. Do I have a second? Okay.
So moved and seconded.
Okay. Any discussions? No? Okay, so do I ask or you ask for the vote?
We'll see if there's any public comment, then we'll take a vote. Is there public comment on the motion? Seeing none, is there any comment from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
There
Okay.
are no comments via phone.
Thank you. Ms. Toof, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat?
Aye.
Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Hawkins? Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine? Aye. Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Wright?
Aye.
Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye, motion carries.
Okay, thank you. And our second applicant is Dr. Massoud, and his specialty is he's an expert in his field in neuroradiology and molecular imaging at Stanford. He went to medical school and completed his postgraduate training, and that can be found on BRD 13.4 of your packet. Dr. Massoud is currently in a Section 2113 faculty appointment at Stanford. Dr. Massoud recently held a position of academic neuroradiologist at the University of Cambridge from 2000 to 2013. He has published in top-ranking scientific journals and has won 7 awards for his presentations on his innovative research at international scientific conferences from the American Society of Neuroradiology. And he is also the co-author of several books and book chapters and has been a peer reviewer for international medical journals. What are his responsibilities currently? He will hold a full-time faculty appointment as professor of radiology at Stanford if approved for special faculty permit by the board. He will provide inpatient and outpatient clinical care, teach and mentor medical and graduate students and fellows. Dr. Massoud will also be doing research in the molecular imaging program for Stanford. Dr. Massoud is an outstanding in his fields of neuroradiology and molecular imaging, and a great need exists for his expertise and experience in Stanford radiology. The committee recommends that the board approve the request to waive the requirement of the Business and Professions Code Section 21668.A5 that prohibits a special faculty permit appointment if the applicant is in a Section 2113 appointment, and to approve Dr. Massoud for a special faculty permit appointment. And I will make the following motion to the board. The board approves the waiver to the requirement in the Business and Professions Code Section 216.1A5 that prohibits a special faculty permit appointment if the applicant is in a Section 2113 appointment, and to approve Dr. Tarkvarthy Massoud for the Business and Professions Code 216.1A1B special faculty permit appointment at Stanford University School of Medicine.
It's been moved and seconded. Yep. Thank you. Is there any comments from the members? Seeing none. Any comments from the audience on the motion? Any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
No questions via phone.
Ms. Toof, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat?
Aye.
Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson? Aye. Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines?
Aye.
Ms. Wright?
Aye.
Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell.
Aye. Motion carries. That's it. I conclude.
Oh, I'm finished.
Thank you for that report and the work of the committee.
Thank you.
That concludes Dr. Bolat's report. We'll now move on to item 15, since we've done 14. That is update, discussion, and possible action of recommendations from the Midwifery Advisory Council meeting. Hello.
Hello, good morning. Carrie Sparavon, the chair of the Midwifery Advisory Council. The last Midwifery Advisory Council meeting was held December 3rd, 2015. We heard staff's recommendations regarding changes to the Licensed Midwives Annual Report Tool, which is used to collect data on licensed midwife-attended births in California. The hope is to have it updated by the 2017 reporting year. The changes should make it both easier for licensed midwives to report their statistics and make those statistics more valuable in informing the board and the community as to the quality and safety of licensed midwife-attended birth in our state. The council also was advised of the continuing work on regulations dictated by the passage of AB 1308 in 2013. This process continues to be stalled due to the inability of the interested parties to reach a compromise regarding the care of women by licensed midwives who have had a prior cesarean delivery. The Midwifery Advisory Council is asking for several reports at our next meeting to help bring additional clarity to this issue, which is so important to California families. The action item I have for you is to approve our agenda for the next Midwifery Advisory Council. So we need a task force update on revisions to the Licensed Midwife Annual Report, an update on continuing regulatory efforts required by Assembly Bill 1308, an update on midwifery-related legislation expected to be introduced or followed this year, discussion and approval of Midwifery Advisory Council member positions that are at the end of their terms, update on the midwifery program, update on progress with midwifery assistant regulations, report from California Association of Midwives on data gathered regarding the ability of licensed midwives to consult or collaborate as is currently required by AB 1308, and a report on current national and international data related to vaginal birth after one or more prior cesarean deliveries.
So I'll move the agenda forward.
Thank you. Was that a motion to adopt?
Yes. Motion.
Thank you, Ms. Leo Sarasowski.
Seconded by Dr. Bolat.
Seconded by Dr. Bolat. Thank you very much to approve the MAC's agenda. Is there any discussion from the members? Questions? Seeing none. Are there any comments from the audience? Public comments?
No phone questions at this time.
None from the phone as well. Thank you. Ms. Tuve, please call the roll.
Dr. Bolat? Aye. Dr. Bishop? Aye. Judge Feinstein? Aye. Dr. Hawkins?
Yes.
Dr. Kraus?
Yes.
Ms. Lawson?
Aye.
Dr. Levine?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Pines? Aye. Ms. Wright?
Aye.
Ms. Yaroslavsky?
Aye.
Dr. Yip?
Aye.
Mr. Serrano Sewell?
Aye. The motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your continued hard work.
And thank you for your continued support.
Appreciate it. All right. Good day. Item 16, colleagues, update on the Physician Assessment Board.
Physician Assistant Board, but that's what you meant. I knew that.
Assistant Board.
Right.
We are the assessment board, right?
Right. The Physician Assistant Board actually has met twice since I last gave a report. Governor Brown appointed Javier Esquivel Acosta, PAC, to the board in November 2015. He holds a medical degree from an international medical school and practiced in Mexico for several years. After coming to the United States, he was awarded a PA degree from Stanford University. In January 2016, Governor Brown reappointed several members to the PA board, including myself, as an ex officio member to serve another term. At the January 2016 board meeting, Robert Sachs was re-elected as board president, and Jed Grant was elected as vice president. With respect to Sunset Review, The Senate Committee on Business, Professions, and Economic Development and Assembly Committee on Business and Professions have begun their sunset oversight review. The Physician Assistant Board is scheduled to be reviewed in early 2016. At the Board's November 2015 meeting, members discussed the draft report, made several changes, and approved the final report. Staff will submit the report to the legislature. With respect to proposed amendments to Title 16 California Code of Regulations, Section 1399.546, reporting of physician assistant supervision related to implementation of State Bill 337. At the Board's November 2015 meeting, members discussed new legislation taking effect in January. There were some important changes to law that pertain to adequate supervision of physician assistants and not the standard of care for record keeping when it comes to recording the supervising physician and the physician assistant. The Board discussed the regulations that should reflect technological changes on how supervision is noted using electronic medical records. EMRs have replaced paper records in most medical practices. These discrepancies may result in confusion with physician assistants attempting to comply with the state laws and regulations. At the Board's January 2016 meeting, proposed amendments to CCR Section 1399.546 were presented. After discussion and public comment, the Board voted to initiate the formal rulemaking process and set the proposed regulation for hearing. With respect to the Education Workforce Development Committee, there are 7 new California-based PA training programs in the pathway to accreditation. ARCPA is the National Physician Assistant Accreditation Organization. To better assist the Board in addressing healthcare workforce shortage issues, the Board directed the committee to contact ARCPA and request information about how many seats each of these programs will have, when the accreditation process will be concluded, and when the first matriculating class will occur. These answers to these questions will enable the Board to have information on what the PA workforce will look like and assist in addressing workforce shortages. This is especially important in that the ARCPA has changed regulations for the PA training programs, requiring master's degree training programs only, which then resulted in the closure of 2 PA programs in California. There's a new state of Georgia law regarding tax deductions for preceptors who are not otherwise reimbursed that was discussed at the Board meeting. The Board discussed this law, which provides tax deductions for physicians who serve as a community-based faculty physician for a medical court clerkship, otherwise known as a preceptor, provided by the community-based facility. The Board discussed that physician assistant training programs are experiencing difficulty in finding physicians willing to work as preceptors for the clinical portion of the physician assistant training program. The Board is concerned that the inability to train new physician assistants will negatively impact the healthcare needs of California consumers. Georgia, in addressing this, provided a tax credit for physicians who acted as preceptors. Discussion at the most recent PA Board meeting evidence that this was not likely to occur in California. To further explore this issue, however, the Board voted to form an advisory committee. This concludes my report. Are there any questions?
Colleagues, any questions? Thank you for that report and for your continued service on that Physician Assistant Board. Are there any comments from the public on Dr. Bishop's report? Any comments from the phone?
Do we have any comments on the line?
No questions via phone.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move to agenda item 17, update on the Health Professions Education Foundation. Ms. Yaroslawski and Dr. Yip.
Thank you. I want to make sure that the board members are aware of the fact that the participation by the medical board on the foundation's board has come to conclusion. It's been sunsetted effective January 1st of 2016. I have served on that foundation board for many years with the attempt to try and change and refigure and refashion and reinvent the opportunity to ensure access to people wanting to go into the medical professions to serve the many, many people in the state of California who are in underserved communities. And it has been my pleasure and my honor to do so. I am really disappointed about this change. But to let you know, as far as those that don't know, the Stephen Thompson Loan Repayment Program is something that this board oversaw and implemented loan repayment programs to doctors going into underserved communities for a commitment of up to 3 years, with the intention of trying to change the culture of not only the doctor and the community to have the doctor come, stay, and become part of the integral fabric of that community, and it has worked. Applications are, oh, by the way, and they get up to $105,000 toward their loan repayment, which is today it's not as much as it used to be, but because students are coming out with so much larger debts. But it has made a difference. And through partnerships with people like the California Endowment, we have moved the money from what our $2 million from this community of doctors here are to the broader community of philanthropic entities, including the endowment. And I need to thank the endowment for that. This year, I think, was $30 million. So we're talking about major money. Applications happen to be open now for doctors, if you might know, from December 7th through February 29th. So if anyone knows anyone that wants to apply, they should go to the website and check it. But since we won't be participating in the future, I just wanted to give you some kind of oversight. We're a state nonprofit established in 1987, and we've awarded more than 10,500 scholarships and loan repayments, totaling more than $124 million. It's a lot of money. There's 58 states 58 counties in the state of California. It's a very varied and very diverse state, from the very rural unmet needs to the very dense needs of the populations in counties like Los Angeles, which is one of the most dense counties in the country, largest counties in the country. We provide culturally and linguistic competent health force workforce dedicated to delivering direct patient care in California's underserved communities. And I would urge any of you that have any interest in this to stay focused and try and become involved. And it's been an honor, and I feel bad, but it is what it is. So thank you. Dr. Yip, I don't know if you want to add anything, but please feel free.
I have an unprepared statement and request that since I've been on the board, I think Ms. Yaroslavsky is the most committed, most engaged member of the board. And I'm just thinking, right this minute, any way, through any proper channel, I know Dr. Gillis retired as a chairman, that somehow we can recommend, not as a board member, but being a candidate to be the chairman of the board of the foundation. I really think she's the best person for it.
Thank you. Also, you should be aware of the fact that Dr. Gidnick has resigned from the board due to health issues. So he will no longer be associated with the foundation either. So,
well, we most certainly need
thank
to...
you.
Yeah,
Dr. Yip, I appreciate that.
Yeah. We most certainly need to find a way to get board member participation back on that foundation. Yes, back on that foundation.
This is a government-appointed position, so you know it's the governor's office. This is just what it is. What it is.
Okay. Well, I want to thank the both of you for your service as foundation members and doing that tremendous good work and goodwill. It's just so crucial to our mission and the profession, medical profession, and the care of the citizens of California. So thank you very much. And as we have our sunset review discussions, I think this is an item we need to include in that report. It was a sunset review that took us off, so maybe we can get sort of back on. But thank you. Are there any comments from the public?
No questions via phone.
No questions from the phone or the audience. Thank you. So with that, we'll move to agenda item 18, colleagues. Agenda items for the May 2016 meeting in the Los Angeles area, probably by the airport. Dr. Lewis.
As we discussed at our October meeting, we would have liked to have had a discussion about updates in medical education, since medical education is really sort of progressing and much more sophisticated and lots of new technologies. And I understand that Dr. Nations was going to come today but was unable. So I'd like to put that discussion on the next board meeting agenda.
I just wanted to state it might be easier to move that to the July board meeting because she's actually out of Oakland. So if we could do it where it's closer to her, that might be easier for her.
That's right. She's closer to the San Francisco area. So we'll put that on in 2 more board meetings.
All right. Thank you.
Save
Ms.
that
Wright?
for that one.
This actually might be appropriate with the Public Outreach Education and Wellness Committee, but as I understand it, there is a shortage of genetic counselors. They are the individuals that advise about the risk of inherited disorders after someone has been tested. So I'd be interested, and I don't know if this falls under the purview of this board, to find out why there's a shortage, what we can do to promote more people going into the profession, because they do need medical training. I know it's a master's degree, but they do need medical training, and they work with doctors who do the genetic testing, and if it's disproportionately affecting any particular communities, because I know if someone gets tested for the breast cancer, you know, if you're the daughter of someone who has the breast cancer, you might carry the gene, and if you're not being tested, what's happening and how that's affecting certain communities, and if we can do anything to do some public outreach to get people into the profession.
Okay, thank you. Are there additional suggestions? Dr. Levine?
This is not time sensitive, but I wonder if staff has the ability to provide a look back at the special faculty permit program in terms of, you know, we approve on a case-by-case basis, you know, what has the experience been in the state? Has this been a flawless program? Have there been problems? Just some sense of the quantity and quality of value delivered by the program to the state of California, and whether there are issues, any issues that might warrant attention.
Okay. Very good. Any additional comments, suggestions? I have one. For our next meeting, you touched on this, Ms. Kirkmeyer. We have keep it on as the sunset report that you'll be drafting, and I know we'll have a dialogue at our October meeting. But my recollection 4 years ago was it was like a really voluminous document. It is, and it will be again, which is fine. Okay, it is what it is, but that we have a sufficient time to review it and comment on it, because it's our names along with staff's that'll be on that report. So we have the time to look at it, digest it, and make any suggestions. Yeah. Did you want to say something, Sharon?
And understand what it is.
Right.
I mean, I think the first thing would be a general reminder, orientation or reorientation to what the purpose of Sunset Review is and what the elements in it are, so that when we actually get the document.
That's perfect for the next meeting.
Yeah, maybe at the next meeting, because by then we'll have the questionnaire. We can sit and kind of just go over the questions there. We won't have responses, but at least that background and orientation to the questions.
And you can get some guidance from the board. Yeah, that's great. Are there any additional suggestions or comments? And there'll be the usual committee and panel work at the meetings. Ms. Kirkmeyer?
I would actually like to ask that we actually have the End of Life Option Act that we have been attending meetings, Ms. Simoes and I, with both agency and other individuals. And we would actually like to invite, we've also been offered the invitation, or actually a proposed individual to come forward. He's an individual who is the Oregon Medical Board past president, and he's been really involved in the End of Life Option Act in Oregon, and he has some information that it might be good for the board to hear how this is going to impact the medical board from their perspective. So that's another option that we can have for a future agenda item. And you know, the bill, it's not effective yet because it's after special session, 90 days after, but I think it would be good for the members to hear how that might impact us as a board. So.
Okay. Great suggestion. Are there any comments from the audience on item 18? Any comments from the phone?
No questions via phone.
All right, that leaves us to the adjournment. Is there a motion? So moved. It's been moved and seconded, but before I do take the aye, I just want to take a moment to thank the board members and staff for being here at this meeting and our two new colleagues. And I want to call particular attention to the staff that helped support yesterday's and today's meetings. Dennis, Regina, Nicole, Ramona, Paulette, Cassandra, Susan, Chris. Is this Regina again? Relina. Jennifer, Christina, Liz, two Liz's. Thank you both. Jennifer, Kirk, Carrie, Diane, Charlotte, and Dolina. The investigators, Mark Loomis and Roberto Maya, for being here as well. Thank you so much. All right, I got anyone. Now, the motion to adjourn? Ayes? All in favor of adjourning, please say aye. 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 Thank you. Motion carries.